Roadshow News Recap starts right now. Lots of big news this week, but our lead story is the 2023 Chevy Corvette Z06 was finally unveiled, and this is a beast of a car. It's got 670 horsepower, and it redlines at 8,600 RPM. It's crazy. But beyond that bow tie bruiser, we'll also talk about the redesigned 2022 Range Rover SUV. There's a new Kia Sportage you need to see. And then rental car company Hertz is betting big on electrics. Or is it just trying to ride on Tesla's coattails? We'll talk about that and a whole lot more on this week's episode of Roadshow News Recap. But happy Friday, everyone. And Sean, great to see you again. I hope you're doing well.
I am doing just fine, Craig. I hope you're doing well. Happy Friday to you.
Well, thank you so much. That's the nicest thing anyone has said to me all week. It's been a doozy.
Well, that's what
and I'm ready for the weekend.
Here for. Yeah, me too.
Well, I appreciate it. Thank you very much. So, yeah, great show. Like and subscribe if you are feeling generous. And, we appreciate every like and every subscription that we can get. So help us out. But anyway, Sean, we got Z06, we got Chevy Corvette, lots of exciting stuff to talk about. Take it away. Why don't you?
Yeah, we're gonna dive right into this thing. This is the return of Big Nasty, as Mark Royce coined the last generation Z06 when it was unveiled back in 2015. This one's a whole lot different, Craig. Obviously, the C8 Corvette mounted its engine in the middle of the car, and the Z06 takes that a step further with a brand new 5.5 liter LT6 is what it's called, V8 engine. No push rods, dual overhead cams, and a flat plane crankshaft.
Whoa. GM can do all that?
Oh,
this
yeah, they can.
Doesn't seem like it's in their wheelhouse.
I know. What's up? No push rods. What the heck? But no, this is a doozy of an engine that screams to 8,600 RPM, like you said. 670 horsepower. I mean, really, the Corvette team kind of said the C8 was really going to be the generation that puts the world's supercars on notice. I think they're getting pretty close with the Z06 from what we're seeing on paper and what we've taken in so far from this, Craig.
Mm-hmm. I mean, the performance metrics, they're claiming it has the most horsepower of any naturally aspirated production V8 ever. I mean, I haven't checked that fact, but I have no reason to not believe that. 670 horses from just 5.5 liters. I mean, that's huge specific output. 121, I think it was, horses per liter. So monumental achievement for GM engineers. If you can get to like 100 horsepower per liter, that's a naturally aspirated, of course. That's a huge achievement, but GM is beating that by like 20%. So incredible. It's got forged titanium connecting rods, sodium-filled exhaust valves. Isn't too out there, but still, it's very important to have those. And then dry sump lubrication, all working together to help deliver that crazy output. Torque, though, is down a little bit compared to the old Z06, which was a much larger displacement engine, and it was supercharged. So what you're getting here is 460 pounds of torque, but that really shouldn't affect performance because they're saying the car's got enough to go from 0 to 60 in just 2.6 seconds when you get the optional Z07 performance package. I don't know about you, Sean, but that's pretty damn fast.
Oh, yeah, that is plenty fast. I mean, I wouldn't be very worried about the reduction in torque. This is going to be fast. You may not get as much of that like snap back in your seat feeling for people who've driven a C7 generation Z06. This may feel more like you're being pulled along with the extra horsepower instead, but it's going to be fast. Like, no doubt about it. I think Chevy and the Corvette team have made just a hell of a car. And I know the Corvette purists, they like that lumpy V8 soundtrack. And I do too. It suits the Corvette. That's what the Corvette is. But I'm also excited for this pivot for the Z06 into the flat plane crank, dual overhead cams, that more exotic engine sound. I just kind of think it suits where Corvette is going. The way they're positioning the car this time, I think it's really exciting. And I still think it sounds fantastic. That high-pitched V8 noise that sounds more akin to, like I think I said, like a Ferrari in the past or something like that. I think it sounds just fantastic.
I need to hear it in person, but when I heard it on the video clip that Chevy shared, it almost sounded like a V6 to me. It did not have that depth that you normally expect from a V8. Now, obviously, with a flat plane crank versus a traditional cross plane crankshaft, you don't get that traditional V8 rumble. It's just the way the firing order is set up. So you don't get that right out of the box, but there's something even higher pitched about this engine, at least on video. So I don't know if it's going to sound all that good, but we'll see. We'll see. There's something to be said about an engine that rips to a super high red line, and 8,600 is pretty damn high. So,
oh yeah,
it will.
Yeah,
yeah.
The high red line is really fun in those slower cars where you can like really ring them out. All right, now add that element to a car that's legitimately really fast. I mean, this thing is just going to rip around places. Like, people are going to get into trouble with this car because the performance it's offering is, it's going to be a fraction of the cost, like of a Ford GT, kind of thing.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's going to be just stupendous what this car is going to be able to do. And I also like, if you don't opt for the Z07 package, it still looks understated in a really cool way. It's not like overly flashy, like the aero pieces aren't crazy. It's just a little bit more aggressive. You can definitely tell it's not a Stingray and it is a Z06. I just think they've done a really great job at putting this package together, at least on paper and video and photos. That could change. You drive it and you're just like, wow, that's nowhere near where it should be. We have to save our final opinions, but I think it's safe to say this is a pretty exciting direction for the Z06.
Absolutely. It's amazing to me that GM spent the money to develop this 5.5-liter V8, which I understand has its roots in the racing program, right?
I heard it may have had something to do with the Blackwing program, perhaps once upon a time, that this engine may have been connected, since I believe that one of the Blackwings that went into the CT6 V, that was dual overhead cam as well, wasn't it? Yeah. Yes, I think there was some sort of connection
4.2
with
liters.
Yeah. The engine that only lived for like 6 months, and then GM was just like, "We're done with that. That was fun, guys, right?" But
this is crazy
I think it has some connections there.
Well, that's good, because the cost of developing an engine like this has got to be astronomical, and if it's only going in one car that they're not going to sell that many of, the price is going to be incredibly high to cover the costs. So it's a hell of a lot easier to take your 6.2-liter LT whatever supercharged V8, tweak that a little bit, and mount it in the Corvette, right? I mean, the 6.2 is already the base engine, naturally aspirated. It already fits in there. It already is proven to work. Mount a blower on it, and you'll have all the performance you need. So it's very interesting that GM went this much higher tech, much more expensive pathway with the Z06 powertrain. And it's going to add a lot of prestige to the car. Not that there's anything wrong with the pushrod V8. They're wonderful, but this is something a little different. It's going to be special.
Yeah, very different. And I think, I believe last week we talked about one of the final Z06 teasers before the car was unveiled this week. And we got a little bit into, like, this very well could be the last Corvette generation with an internal combustion engine, as General Motors, their goal is to only sell battery electric vehicles and zero emission vehicles by 2035. I mean, unless the C8 generation is going to live for 25 years, like, there will be another generation Corvette, or if it dies or whatever happens, so this could be a really, really special Corvette, just from all of these elements that we're talking about. I think especially because of the fact that there's no forced induction involved. There's just something so grand about driving a high performance engine without any sort of turbo or supercharging done to it. It's just such a great feeling to feel all of that power just come from displacement and, the engineering trickery that happens. Just for me, I think that's a cool moment when you're driving a car like a Z06 or something similar in that respect. Same thing with
Or
like
an
the
S2000.
GT350 or an S2000. Yes, my mind went to Shelby GT350 first. That Voodoo engine was incredible.
Yes.
Um,
Delightful.
but yeah, absolutely. This one I think will be one, love it or hate it, that will be sought after in the decades to come for Corvette fans and maybe people who wouldn't look at a Corvette. This could just be an excellent branding exercise.
Because
To
it's
get
going to
people into the
undercut
Corvette
Lamborghini
camp.
and Ferrari, right? It ain't going to cost Lambo or Ferrari money. It just can't. It's a Corvette. Like, that's their main advantage. It's like value pricing, yet still delivering a hell of a lot of performance. So I would be
remember,
surprised
everybody,
if this...
you go to a Chevy dealer to buy a Corvette where they're also selling a Trax. Like, that's just part of the experience you get when you buy a Corvette. You're not walking into a boutique dealer, kind of thing.
No.
So yeah, exactly as your point, Craig, is part of the experience is this value pricing and getting more bang for your buck. That's what Corvette has always been, and part of what has made it so successful as a nameplate.
Yeah, absolutely. This should be a pretty sweet track car with what should be, I would imagine, a very linear power delivery. Just the engine revs so high, it should be super smooth and no surge of torque at, just off idle like you get with a turbo or a supercharger. So it should be a track beast. They're promising up to 1.22 Gs on the skid pad. That's a lot of Gs. And the Z07 package also gets you carbon ceramic brakes, which again are ideal for repeated abuse on the racetrack. They're also offering carbon fiber wheels, which should be pretty interesting and help cut down on unsprung mass and deliver even better performance. So lots of good stuff here.
OG is what I would say to that. But this car looks fantastic. It's going to enter production next summer. We don't have any prices yet, but like we said, expect a value play for the performance you are getting, but certainly expect it to cost a premium over your standard Corvette Stingray.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, indeed. But I've got to think it's going to be more than six figures. But how much into the six-figure territory? Who knows? We'll find out.
I don't know. Yeah, ask your Magic 8-Ball later, Craig.
Okay. Is there an app for that? Because I have my phone here, but anyway.
Moving along. I'm sure there is.
There probably is. Range Rover, 2022 Range Rover. I should say, redundantly say Land Rover Range Rover. That's the official name. Redesigned SUV, now in its fifth generation. I was at the Backgrounder event for this vehicle. They showed it to us briefly a month or two ago. But I wanted to ask you, Sean, what is your take on the looks of this thing? I personally think it's stunning, but
I
agree
not. With you 100%. Actually, when I saw these materials, I was like, wow, that looks like something that should be on a spindle at an auto show as like a design study. It's so clean and smooth. There's just really no hard edges. It holds that Range Rover prestige aura about it. And then you get to the rear end, and again, it looks like this futuristic concept SUV with those taillights. I really think it's this perfect blend of classiness that you expect from a Range Rover, but this forward-looking appeal, if that makes any sense in sort of that word vomit I just threw at you.
It does make sense. What I love about it is that it's just the design is so clean. It's like the designers said, okay, we're putting the pencils down. This project is finished. We don't have to add another crease. We don't need another line here. We don't have to change the stamping. We don't have to add trim. We don't need a gigantic grille to have presence, right? Like you look at a Lexus or even an Audi these days, it's just like, whoa, guys, you gotta step back for a second. That's just getting out of hand. Everything about this vehicle is so tasteful. It stands out from the crowd just because of its subtlety, right?
Yeah.
And
It's
I
funny.
think there
It
needs to be
looks,
more restraint like this.
yeah, it looks, and I'm not saying this in a bad way, it looks old, but in a good way. Like it
Mm,
looks, it's so familiar where you're like,
yeah.
it doesn't really look new, but then also at the same time, you're like, that looks really fresh and new. It's this really
Hmm.
weird back and forth when I'm staring at this car. It's just, and I guarantee you that was probably the design brief is we don't want to change what a Range Rover looks like because people know what a Range Rover is, but we want to make it fresh is kind of what the
Yeah.
feeling I get from this thing is don't mess with success, but we're going to design a pretty handsome SUV. And I just think they nailed it inside and out. The trim, the
They
materials,
did.
everything. It's just so classy and gorgeous. And I know you and I, we played a game once upon a time. If you were, we were like Lincoln Navigator, a Cadillac Escalade. I wouldn't have even
Hmm.
considered a Range Rover. The last one, it was like, it was nice, but at that point, I'm
Hmm.
like, I don't know. I think an Escalade is nicer. I'd take this hands down. Like, give me the baton and I'm running
Yeah.
away with the Range Rover.
Not even a contest. Yeah. What's
Yeah.
interesting, so the design is super modern. You get, LED headlights and whatever. There are retractable door handles on the outside, but and the body side is super clean. But you also have some classic Range Rover styling cues: the sort of tapering roof line, the rising sill, and that strong shoulder line. Those are all things that they've had for decades on the Range Rover nameplate, and they've sort of retained those. So it's a Range Rover, but it's a little something different, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's new, but to your
Yeah.
point, Sean, still looks old in the best way possible.
Right.
But
Yeah.
underpinnings are brand new. It's a new architecture that's about 3/4 aluminum, and it promises to have 50% greater torsional stiffness than the outgoing model. The new Range Rover is a big SUV. You can get a short and a long wheelbase version as before, but rear wheel steering is now standard. It moves the back wheels 7 degrees one way or the other. That gives you greater maneuverability at low speeds, more stability at higher speeds. And they're saying the thing has a turning circle of just 36 feet, which is less than a Honda Civic sedan, which is pretty crazy because that's not a big car. Off-road
Mm-hmm.
capability should be pretty strong as well, up to, they're saying, 11.6 inches of ground clearance, and it should be able to drive through more than 35 inches of water, which is rather a lot of water. I wouldn't trust going through that much, but if they're saying you can, so
I mean, yeah, somebody else go buy one for us and drive through 35 inches of water. That's enough. That's more than I would freak out if, there's half an inch of water, like in a basement. 35 inches,
yeah,
if I see that on the road, I'm like, I don't think so. I'm turning
yeah, that's
around.
like waist deep water. Like, come
Yeah.
on. New powertrains to get excited about. The base is going to be a mild hybrid inline six with a 48-volt electrical system. Get you 395 horses, 406 pounds of torque. But then they're offering a new BMW-sourced 4.4-liter twin turbo V8. They're promising 523 horsepower and 553 pounds of torque from that engine, which should be pretty nice. It's interesting that they're replacing their old 5-liter V8 that they had for a number of years. So going with the BMW option there. They're going to have a plug-in as well with 434 horsepower. This is coming out in 2023, by the way. 434 horsepower and 62 miles of electric range, which is pretty impressive for a
That's
vehicle of
awesome.
that size. Yeah, that's going to
Yeah.
be a pretty big battery pack in there.
Yeah, Craig, I have right now our long-term Volvo XC60 recharge, and that has like 20 miles when you have a full battery. And it's like, why is this even here? Just build a regular hybrid at that point.
Yeah,
Like it's
yeah,
in
it's
a
not even.
you take like 3 trips and your battery's empty. So I like to see if you are going to do a plug-in hybrid, like pack some usable range into it. Like that's just my opinion because even if the goal is you drive, you come home and charge it, it's like, well, the goal shouldn't be you drive for 15 minutes or 20 minutes and your battery's empty and then you're still running errands and now you're just burning gas,
Yeah. Yep. And as a former Chevy Volt with V owner, it's understandable why you appreciate that extra range. Because what did the car have? the second gen? Was it like 50,
Uh,
54 miles of range,
52,
something
I
like that?
think. 52, I think, was the EPA estimated rating on the
Yeah.
second gen Volt. And yeah, it was great. It was plenty to do what you wanted to do around town and come home without kicking the engine on.
Yeah. Yeah. Then get home, plug it in, and you're ready to do it all again the next day. Um,
Yep.
but that plug-in model, which is coming out in 2023, presages the upcoming full electric model, which is due out 1 year later. They haven't shared any info about that, but a fully electric Range Rover should be pretty interesting. Obviously, probably perform quite well. We've got a bunch of other EVs coming out, from the Hummer family to the Ford Lightning, the Rivian products. So they didn't give us any numbers, but it's probably going to have a bajillion horsepower and pounds of torque. So performance should be pretty good.
Sounds about right.
Inside, inside, Land Rover is taking an interesting approach. Again, the interior is very cleanly designed. It fits nicely with the exterior, but they're offering some interesting materials. They're having leather that's more ecologically, it's been tanned in a more ecologically friendly way. You can get non-leather alternatives across the lineup, and they're offering some wool blended fabrics too. So these, again, are kind of like old school offerings in a way, right? You used to have cloth seats and everything, and going way back, you would have materials that were made out of natural things, and they're kind of bringing that forward into the future to be more sustainable. So I think it's a very interesting
I
approach.
love it. I
Yeah.
love it. I love just love to see this. I'm so done, and leather is so overplayed. Leather hasn't felt special in a car for like 20 years. You know, like it's so overdone. It's so nice to get into something else where designers have played with different fabrics and materials and stuff like that, because now all of a sudden it's setting you apart, you know.
Yeah. Get some nice premium fabrics in there. Interestingly, though, on a couple of the models, I know the SV variant will get this. They're offering some very intricate marquetry. It's wooden inlays for the trim, which looks super cool. It's like little mosaic patterns in the wood itself. Very stunning. And then also the SV model can be had with ceramic accents. They have it on the shifter, the climate control rings, the volume dial, and a couple other places. So again, more interesting materials. And I think this is a trend we're going to see going forward, not just because it's more ecologically friendly, but also because it separates you from the pack, right? You can have plastic, like you said, or leather, like you said, Sean, but then everybody's doing that. So how do you actually stand out? Well, throw in some ceramic accents. That's one way to do it.
Yeah, yep, I just totally agree. I just look at that interior and I'm just so impressed with the variety of materials in there, and it feels so sleek and modern. And I even get kind of like what's the term? I can't think of it, but just kind of that, I don't know, I can't think of the term, so never mind. But my takeaway is it's a gorgeous interior. Excuse me while I have a brain fart right now.
It's okay. You're allowed. It's Friday afternoon. So
yeah.
As for tech, expect the full range of stuff, from adaptive air suspension, cruise control, yada, yada, blah, blah. Go read any modern car review and see all the tech that's listed. You'll probably have the same stuff in the Range Rover here. 13.1-inch infotainment screen with the Pivi Pro infotainment system. And they're also offering a 13.7-inch digital instrument cluster, which looks super sharp. The redesigned Range Rover should be available next spring, and it's expected to start at around $105,000, including destination fees. So start saving up your pennies, Sean, or get a paper route as a side hustle.
Do people still read the paper?
I don't know. You're going to have to find out.
Well, I better take the job first and then be disappointed.
And then find out. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
That's how it usually works.
Yeah.
But anyway, while you're at it, when you're done watching Roadshow News Recap, head on over, swing on by, check out the main Roadshow YouTube channel. There are a couple videos you should totally check out. We've got one that looks at the 2022 GMC Sierra. It's a first look video hosted by John Wong, our very own John Wong. You got to check out this new truck if you haven't seen it already. It's way more premium than the outgoing version. Also, we have a couple other videos to check out. We've got video on the Range Rover and, of course, the Corvette Z06. So if you want to see more about these particular vehicles, or even hear that Z06 startup sound, You probably want to hear that. Head on over to the standard Roadshow YouTube channel and check out all of that great content. But
Yes.
moving along, Kia Sportage, that was just announced and it's been completely redesigned. Very interesting stuff here, Sean.
I mean, I don't know. I think I've said it before a bajillion times, but like seriously, what is in the water at Hyundai Kia Design? Because we saw this SUV previously because Kia revealed it globally before these US specs and stuff were revealed. And it's just like, park this thing next to a CRV, a RAV4, an Equinox. I mean, the competitive set, and tell me like what looks new and fresh. And I'm not saying this is a pretty looking car or it's going to age well or anything like that. But in the moment, you're just like, wow, that's something that's different, and for a lot of people, especially in the compact SUV segment, I mean, that's a tough segment to crack. What are you laughing at?
It is. You said, well, that's something. I was just laughing like, yep, that sure is something. It has design.
Boy,
no, I'm kidding.
Boy, dandy, that is something. But no, this is a totally new vehicle inside and out. This is Kia's version, for people who don't know, of the new Tucson. So it rides on the same platform. Hyundai's kind of going for this kind of vaporwave retro future aesthetic, where Kia's taking it. It's definitely still futuristic, but in no way does this look like the Tucson at all. You would be hard pressed to be like, oh yeah, those two are related if you ask somebody who didn't know about the industry. It's 7.1 inches longer, 7.1 inches longer, and a 3.4 inch longer wheelbase. A little bit taller, a little bit wider, but that gives people a lot more legroom and cargo space, most importantly. So the proportions, they look pretty good. On the inside specifically, as you see with this B-roll going on there, it takes a big, long infotainment screen and digital gauge cluster and puts it right smack dab in your face. I personally feel like this is getting a little bit lazy from Hyundai and Kia, because that is the exact same cluster you will find in a ton of their other vehicles. And for me, that dilutes specific vehicles and makes them feel less special.
True. It's box checking, right?
You
need a big screen for the infotainment. You need digital gauge cluster, check and check. We've got these parts ready. Throw them in. Go. Done.
Yep.
And everyone does that.
Yes. Yeah. It's not just Hyundai Kia, but I just got out of our long-term Kia Carnival minivan, and I'm, looking at the new Sportage's interior, and I'm like, kind of feels like I'm sitting in a Carnival. It's definitely different. It's not identical and by any way, shape, or form, but it's just like the screens kind of make me feel like I'm in a very similar car. And I know that's not something that many people experience, because they're only buying one specific car at a time, where, Craig, you and I sometimes are fortunate enough to flip in and out of a lot of different vehicles to experience them. But
yes,
that part just feels a little like for me. But overall, I think it's a very nice looking SUV from a design standpoint. So far, Kia is only mentioning one powertrain, and that's a 2.5 liter naturally aspirated 4-cylinder. Should be good for 187 horsepower, 178 pound-feet of torque. Like I said, that's the only powertrain they announced so far. But another powertrain will be announced at a later date. I'd bet my money on that being a hybrid or a plug-in hybrid, like the Tucson offers. This vehicle will offer a diesel elsewhere in the world, and I think hell will freeze over if they brought the diesel to the US for some reason. So it's probably a hybrid.
Yeah, and maybe like the 1.6 turbo, which could go with the hybrid, other hybrid bits, or they have the lovely 2.5 turbo that just has loads of torque. So that'd be a good fit in there if they wanted like a sports car, small crossover,
Sportage GT or something like that.
Yes, or the Sportage, totally, as some people call it.
Yes,
I don't know what the actual pronunciation is, but we in America, we say Sportage.
Sportage. Sportage or something like that.
Sportage. Yeah. Yep.
Yes,
You
exactly.
also, but you get Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. What a surprise there. Um, there are standard LED headlamps and automatic high beams. Very nice to have. And they're also offering a trail-ready Sportage X Pro model, which comes with 17-inch wheels and all-terrain tires, as well as beefier looks and a whole bunch of different like exterior accents, which I always question the off-road model of some front drive, family crossover. Like, who's actually taking the RAV4 TRD Pro, to their local gravel pit? I can't imagine. I mean, maybe people are, but I don't think so.
It's just if anyone's interested, I did a special conversation with our other reviews editor, John Wong, about the tuner car culture and how the off-roading culture seemed to replace that. And that, Craig, what you just said made me think of it, because those kinds of SUVs just kind of play into that scene where it's just like they don't really have any capability, very marginal improvements, but they're just playing into a trend where people are really into these outdoorsy, rugged looking vehicles right now, and people are just snapping them up. And I don't see that ending anytime soon. Who knows what trend could come and replace that? But yeah, everyone's got to have an offering if they want a SUV. There's got to be an off-road, rugged looking one. So that's what this X line Sportage trim is for the Kia.
Mm-hmm. Totally. But I guess they didn't have any pricing or finalized trim breakouts just yet. But it should go on sale in the first quarter of next year, so they'd better get on that because that's coming up pretty quick. So
Yes.
hopefully we'll have pricing
Let's go.
and a trim walk sooner than later. Yeah.
Yes.
Last major story of the show, though, Hertz went bankrupt not long ago. But as they're moving out of that now, they placed an order for 100,000 Tesla vehicles. 100,000. And they're claiming they want to build a modern mobility ecosystem. I mean, they're not really building anything, but you know what I mean. So
yeah,
they're going to have a whole bunch of Model 3 Teslas out there people can rent for their initial order from Tesla, which sounds like they're suggesting they're going to be buying even more in the future. And they're going to give people access to the automaker's supercharger network. What do you make of this, Sean? Is this a cynical move designed to ride on Tesla's coattails, to cash in on the Tesla brand? What's the word? The cool factor
cachet.
Or something? It's cachet, yes. Or is this just a smart business move to be more environmentally friendly? I don't know.
I think it's both. Everybody's seeing I think you said last week that the tidal wave of electrification will be crashing down on us in like the next 5 years or so, or even sooner. And I think Hertz, fresh out of bankruptcy under new owners, clearly people were huddled up in a room together trying to hash out how can we make Hertz relevant and after we restructure. And their first big, bold move was, we're going to spend a lot of money on a bunch of Teslas because people like Teslas. And guess what? I guarantee you people will be like, hell yeah, I want to go rent a Tesla. Like, so yeah, I'm going to go to Hertz and get one. A part of this is Hertz is also partnering with Uber. And Uber will be getting up to 50,000 of these Hertz-owned Teslas made available to Uber drivers. So Uber drivers can go to Hertz and be like, yeah, I don't own a car, but I want to drive for Uber. So may I please rent one of these Teslas? And they'll have weekly rates that a driver can pay and that sort of thing. So they're really, I think, trying to diversify away from the fact that we're not just the counter you go up to and ask for the midsize after getting off your plane, but like they're trying to find different avenues where they can be relevant in a very fluid, changing automotive industry. But overall, I think it's super smart because Tesla doesn't make millions of cars per year, as I'm sure everyone knows. They do like a couple 100,000, kind of thing. So if Hertz is buying 100,000 of them, that's a significant portion of Tesla's production chart pie, whatever you want to call it, that is now consumed. So now if, rival rental company, whatever a Hertz rival is, I know they own different brands, so I'm not sure what is an actual rival to Hertz, they're like, oh yeah, we want to do that too. They probably can't, because Tesla will probably be like, we don't have the capacity to build you also 100,000 cars.
Yeah. I mean, that's a tall order to fill, but and especially with the production issues that Tesla has had, not necessarily right now, but beforehand, production problems, but then also supply issues that are racking not just the automotive industry, but tons of other industries as well. And then you throw in the chip shortage on top of that, and it just becomes more and more difficult to make products that you can sell. So who knows how long it'll take Hertz to get those 100,000 Teslas? Maybe many years. I don't know. But
yeah, they're saying the first ones are coming next month. In November, they'll be available for people to walk up to their local Hertz store and be like, I'd like a Tesla to rent. So I'm sure it will be perhaps more focused on areas where electric vehicles are more common at first. They didn't say how this is going to roll out, so I'm not sure I would expect a Model 3 at every single Hertz counter across the US starting in November. But I mean, this is moving very quickly. But yeah, it's a pretty big deal. And if you're wondering why you're seeing a lot of photos and footage of Tom Brady, they hired him to do new commercials playing up the fact that Hertz is jumping in on this Tesla fleet. And Tom Brady's the guy who's going to sell it to all of you to hopefully get you to walk up to a Hertz counter to rent a Tesla.
Good luck. Because to your point, the point you made a minute ago, you're not going to find one of these when you get off the plane at the Bismarck, North Dakota Regional Airport or whatever. They're going to be probably in California.
You're going to find a lot of wind instead. A lot of wind.
Yes. So anyway, good news that Hertz is electrifying its vehicle fleet. Once those 100,000 Teslas do arrive, they say that's going to account for about 20% of their global fleet, which will be electrified at that point, which is pretty interesting. So that'll just about do it for the show this week. But before we check out, Sean, I understand you had a few other stories you wanted to promote before we sign off.
You know it. There was a ton of other stuff we couldn't talk about this week, including the fact that it looks like the Biden White House finally came to an agreement with other Democrats, and the federal tax credit, if everyone still remains on board for the federal tax credit for electric vehicles, will go up to $12,500, Craig. Whew. That's a $5,000 boost that we could be in for people buying an EV. There's also news that Ford is delaying the over-the-air update for Blue Cruise. So those who were eligible won't be getting that until early 2022. That should have been here already. There's a new AMG SL. It does suck. Yeah, for people who really want Blue Cruise. But there's that new AMG SL and all sorts of more stuff that you can read about. Check it out this weekend on theroadshow.com.
I wrote a lovely story about a Mercedes-Benz van concept. Did you read it, Sean?
No.
At least you're honest. It's the Mercedes-Benz Sustainier. It's a van that has a bunch of eco-friendly features, so check that out too. Anyway,
I will.
That's a wrap.
I will
folks.
Check that out.
You should. And not you, plural, you specifically, Sean. I'm not talking to the audience. You check that out. Because I know you love a commercial van. No, you don't.
Yes.
Anyway, that is a wrap, folks. Not a turkey wrap or a shawarma. What I'm trying to say, we're done here. So thank you so much for watching. We wouldn't have a show if it weren't for you guys. Thank you, Sean, for helping host this program. And thank you, Evan Miller, for handling all the back-end technical stuff. The editing, the posting, the making all the backgrounds and stuff. I don't know how he does it, but he does it, and it works well. So thank you, guys. Thank you so much for watching Roadshow News Recap, where we dissect and discuss the most important automotive stories of the past week. And on that note, thanks again for watching, and have a great weekend.
Happy Halloween.